Everything seemed fine until Margaret turned 78. For most of her life, Margaret had been the kind of woman who didn't just exist. She lived with a vibrant purpose that touched everyone around her. She'd raised 3 children, not just feeding and clothing them, but instilling in them a deep sense of kindness and curiosity. For 30 years she was Mrs. Davis, the beloved elementary school teacher whose classroom was a haven of laughter and learning, where every child felt seen and understood. After retirement, she didn't slow down. She simply redirected her boundless energy. She became the quiet, indispensable force behind her church's outreach program, organizing food drives with meticulous care, ensuring no family went hungry, and visiting the homebound, bringing not just casseroles but genuine companionship. Her kitchen always smelled faintly of cinnamon and coffee, a comforting aroma that promised warmth and conversation, and her laugh was a rich rumbling sound that could fill a room, a sound that spoke of a life well lived and a heart full of joy. She wasn't a hero in the grand dramatic sense, but a good solid person, the kind of neighbor you could always count on, a sibling who offered unwavering support, a co-worker whose wisdom you sought. She always had a kind word, a practical solution, and an uncanny ability to make you feel like the most important person in the room. Her days were full, her calendar marked with appointments, lively lunches with friends, and demanding volunteer shifts. She felt useful, connected, seen, a vital thread in the rich tapestry of her community. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, like the gradual dimming of a familiar light, things began to shift. Her eyesight, which had always been sharp enough to spot a misplaced comma in a student's essay from across the room, started to blur. It became harder to read the small print on grocery labels, a frustrating daily reminder, and even her favorite devotional, once a source of comfort, now strained her eyes, making the words swim on the page. Her knees, once reliable companions on long walks and bustling errands, now ached with a persistent dull throb that made climbing the church steps feel like an insurmountable Everest. Each step was a conscious effort, a quiet battle fought within her own body. Friends one by one started to move away, drawn by the pull of grandchildren or the need for warmer climates, or simply faded from her life, their names appearing less and less in her phone's call history, replaced by a growing silence. The church, which had once felt like an extension of her family, a place where she knew every face and every story, began to feel different too. New younger faces filled the pews, their energy vibrant and their ideas fresh. The outreach program she'd poured her heart into for years was now run by a dynamic young woman with a laptop and a flurry of new digital-first initiatives. Margaret found herself sitting in meetings, offering suggestions born of decades of experience, only to be met with polite nods and quick changes of subject. She'd try to share a story from her years of wisdom, a lesson learned the hard way, and the conversation would simply move on, as if she hadn't spoken at all, leaving her with a quiet, burning sense of irrelevance. One Tuesday, a day that felt no different from any other, she sat at her kitchen table, a cup of tea growing cold in front of her, the steam long gone. She realized with a jolt that went deeper than she expected that she hadn't spoken to anyone all day. The phone hadn't rung. No emails, no texts. The silence in the house, once a welcome respite, was no longer peaceful. It was vast and echoing, a hollow space that seemed to swallow her whole. She looked at her reflection in the dark window, a woman with silver hair and tired eyes, lines etched by laughter and sorrow, and a chilling thought whispered through her mind, a thought that felt both foreign and terrifyingly familiar. Am I disappearing? It wasn't a dramatic cry for help, not a sudden breakdown, but a quiet, profound ache, a slow erosion of her sense of self. She still believed in God, of course. That was a bedrock of her existence. But the vibrant, active faith of her younger years felt distant, like a memory of a summer day in the middle of a long, cold winter. She tried to pray, to find the familiar words of comfort, but they felt hollow, bouncing off the ceiling, returning to her unheard. She felt a profound loneliness, a sense of being on the sidelines of a life that was still going on, bustling and vibrant, just without her. The world seemed to be moving at a pace she couldn't match, and she was left behind, a quiet observer. Maybe that's not exactly your story. Perhaps your circumstances are different, your age younger or older, your pain a different shade, a different texture. But maybe the feeling is familiar. That slow creeping sense of becoming invisible, of being forgotten, of losing your place in the world, or even in the eyes of God. That fear that as your physical strength wanes, as your social connections thin, so too does your worth, your purpose, your very reason for being. It's a fear that can settle deep in the bones, a quiet dread that can overshadow even the brightest memories. In this time together, in this shared space, we're going to walk through a story, a psalm, a reflection, and a prayer. We'll sit with the quiet, unwavering light of this candle, a symbol of God's presence arriving not at the end of the darkness, but right in the middle of it, a gentle beacon in the quiet. We won't pretend to have all the answers because sometimes there aren't any easy ones, but we will hold space for the questions, for the ache, for the fear that sometimes feels too big to name, too personal to share. We will acknowledge the reality of this pain, not to dwell in it, but to find a way through it, together. Margaret at her kitchen table still felt that chill deep in her bones. The tea was cold, the silence was deep, almost suffocating, and the question lingered, unspoken, heavy in the air. What now? Is there still a place for me? She didn't have an answer. Only the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the growing shadow of the afternoon. That chill Margaret felt at her kitchen table, that quiet question of am I disappearing? It's a feeling that settles deep, isn't it? It's not just about the physical changes, the knees that ache or the eyes that blur, though those are real and often painful. It's about something far more profound. The sense of losing your place, of the world moving on without you, of the vibrant, contributing person you once were fading into the background. It's the quiet erosion of identity, the fear that your stories, your wisdom, your very presence no longer hold the weight they once did. It's waking up in the morning and feeling a profound emptiness, a quiet dread that another day will pass where you feel unseen, unheard, unneeded. It's the ache of realizing that the people you poured your life into might be too busy to notice you now, or that the community you served has found new hands, new voices to do the work, leaving you on the periphery. It's the unspoken fear that even God in His vastness might have forgotten your name in the quiet, overlooked corners of your life. This isn't a dramatic, sudden crisis. It's often a slow, insidious creep, a gradual fading that leaves you feeling adrift in a world that once felt so familiar. It's the loneliness that comes not from being alone, but from being present and yet invisible. 3,000 years ago, in a world vastly different from ours, someone felt exactly this. They wrestled with these same fears of aging, of abandonment, of losing their significance, and they wrote it down. It's a voice from the Psalms, a voice that knows the texture of this particular kind of loneliness, this fear of being cast aside. It's a voice that doesn't offer easy answers, but instead offers the profound comfort of being understood. Listen to these words from Psalm 71 and let them settle not as an ancient text to be studied, but as a mirror to your own heart. a voice that already knows what you might be feeling. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me and save me. Let me never be put to shame. There's a deep vulnerability in that, isn't there? The shame of feeling like a burden, of needing help, of not being as capable as you once were. The shame of asking for assistance, for attention, when you've always been the one giving it. The shame of feeling like you've somehow failed by simply growing older, by simply needing more, by simply being less. It's a prayer not just for deliverance from external judgment, but from the internal shame that whispers you are no longer enough. It's a plea to be seen, to be valued, to be held in dignity, even when the world seems to suggest otherwise, even when your own body feels like it's betraying you. Be my rock of refuge, to which I can always go. Give the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. My rock of refuge. Think about that image. When the ground beneath your feet feels shaky, when the familiar landmarks of your life begin to disappear, when the people you counted on are no longer there or no longer able to offer the same support, where do you go? Where do you turn when the world feels too loud, too fast, too indifferent? This isn't just a theological statement about God's nature. It's a cry from the heart for a place of safety, a place of unwavering stability, a place where you can always go, no matter how much changes around you. It's the longing for something steady, something unchanging when everything else feels like shifting sand, like a current pulling you further and further from shore. It's the quiet hope that even when you feel like a small, insignificant pebble in a vast, indifferent ocean, there is a foundational strength, a divine presence that holds you, that anchors you. Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. This is the raw, honest plea at the heart of this psalm, and perhaps at the heart of your own experience. It's the fear of abandonment, of being left behind, of becoming a forgotten story, a faded photograph in an old album. It's the terror that as the body weakens, as the mind perhaps becomes less sharp, the spirit might also be left to fend for itself, alone and vulnerable. It's the quiet dread that the very God you've served, the God you've trusted, the God you've built your life upon, might turn his face away when you need him most, when you have nothing left to offer but your weakness. This isn't a lack of faith. It's the honest, gut-wrenching cry of a human heart grappling with the deepest fears of aging and vulnerability, a plea for continued connection when all signs point to disconnection. As you listen to these words, look at the candle. Its flame flickers, small but persistent, a quiet light in the surrounding dimness. It's a reminder that God's presence isn't always a booming voice or a dramatic intervention that sweeps away all your troubles. Sometimes it's just a steady, quiet light, a gentle warmth, present even when nothing is felt, present even when the darkness feels overwhelming. It's there, holding space, just as these ancient words hold space for your deepest fears, your most vulnerable longings. It's a quiet assurance that even in the deepest shadows there is a light that does not go out. We've heard the raw honesty of the psalmist, that cry, "Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone." It's a feeling that resonates deeply when you find yourself in a place where your value seems to diminish with your physical strength, or when the world seems to forget the contributions you've made. This psalm, this ancient prayer, doesn't shy away from that fear. Instead, it holds it, gives it voice, and then offers images that can anchor us when we feel adrift, when the currents of life threaten to pull us under. Let's sit with a few of these images, letting them speak to the quiet corners of our own experience, to the places where we feel most vulnerable and most in need of reassurance. The psalmist cries out, "Be my rock of refuge, to which I can always go." A rock of refuge. What does that bring to mind for you personally? Is it a solid cliff face against a stormy sea? A place where the waves can crash with all their fury but never dislodge you, never pull you into the depths? Or is it a quiet shaded cave, a place to retreat from the harsh sun and the clamor of the world, a sanctuary where you can simply be without expectation or demand? When you feel like you're fading, like your voice is no longer heard in the cacophony of modern life, like the world is moving too fast for you to keep up, where do you go for refuge? Do you find yourself withdrawing perhaps from social gatherings, from conversations where you feel overlooked, or where your stories are met with polite but uninterested smiles? This image of a rock isn't about escaping the world or denying the reality of your situation, but about finding a place within it that is unshakable, a foundation that remains firm even when everything else feels fluid and uncertain. It suggests that even when your physical strength falters, when your energy wanes, there is a strength, a stability, a divine presence that you can lean into. A presence that doesn't depend on your performance, your productivity, or your visibility. It's a profound reminder that even when you feel like a small, insignificant pebble in a vast ocean, there is a foundational strength that holds you, that cradles you, that will not let you be swept away. Then the psalmist says, "For you are my rock and my fortress." My fortress. This isn't just a place to hide, it's a place of defense, a place where you are actively protected. When you feel the sting of being ignored, when the fear of abandonment creeps in like a cold shadow, when the loneliness feels like an attack on your spirit, eroding your sense of self-worth, where is your defense? Do you find yourself building walls perhaps? Not of stone, but of silence, to protect a heart that feels bruised by neglect, by the casual oversight of others. This image of a fortress speaks to a deep primal need for security, for protection from the emotional and spiritual assaults that often come with feeling marginalized, with the quiet indignity of being forgotten. It's a powerful counter-image to the feeling of vulnerability that often accompanies aging and the loss of social connection. It suggests that even when you feel exposed and fragile, when the world seems to have forgotten your name, there is a divine protection that surrounds you, a fortress built not of stone, but of unwavering love and steadfast presence. It's a quiet assurance that you are not left to face these battles alone, even when you feel utterly solitary, even when the silence in your home feels overwhelming. This fortress is not about keeping others out, but about keeping you safe and cherished within. And finally, the psalmist pleads, "Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone." This is a lament, a raw cry that gives voice to the deepest fear of being forgotten, of becoming irrelevant, of losing your place in the grand narrative of life. Do not cast me away. Have you ever felt that ache, that deep spiritual loneliness when you've poured out your life, your energy, your love, your wisdom, and now, in your later years, you feel like you're being set aside, like a tool that's no longer useful, a book that's been read and put back on the shelf, or a story that's no longer interesting to anyone but yourself? This psalm doesn't tell you to suppress that feeling, to pretend it's not there, to put on a brave face. It gives you explicit permission to cry out, to question, to be angry, to bring that fear directly to God, without filter or pretense. It acknowledges that the pain of feeling invisible, of feeling forgotten, is real and valid, a legitimate wound to the spirit. It's a testament to a God who can handle our honest laments, who doesn't expect us to be perpetually cheerful or perfectly composed, especially when our hearts are heavy with the weight of feeling unseen. This psalm in its very existence tells us that it is okay to be angry, to be confused, to feel abandoned, and to voice those feelings to the one who promises to be our rock and our fortress. It's a profound act of faith to bring your deepest vulnerability to the divine. The candle continues to burn, a small, steady flame. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention, but it is undeniably there, a quiet presence in the room. It doesn't explain away the darkness, but it exists within it, offering a gentle, persistent light. Just like the images in this psalm, it offers a gentle anchor, a reminder that even in the deepest quiet, even in the most profound sense of being overlooked, there is light, there is presence, there is a steadfast love that sees you. Picking up from those powerful images of rock and fortress, and that honest cry of "Do not cast me away," we continue to let this psalm speak to the very real experience of feeling overlooked and forgotten. The psalmist isn't just expressing fear, they are also expressing a deep, abiding trust, even when that trust feels hard-won, even when it feels like a fragile thread in a storm. Consider again the plea. Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. This isn't just a request for continued existence. It's a longing for continued connection, for continued worth, for continued purpose. When you feel your physical strength diminishing, when the tasks that once came easily now require immense effort, or perhaps have become impossible, it's natural to wonder if your value diminishes with it. Society often equates worth with productivity, with visible contribution, with youthful vigor, but the psalm offers a radically different perspective. Not that your strength will miraculously return, but that God's presence, His love, His unwavering commitment to you is not contingent on your strength, your capabilities, or your outward appearance. It's a quiet yet profound assurance that even when your hands can no longer do what they once did, even when your mind feels less sharp, your heart, your spirit, your very being remains precious and held in the divine gaze. It's about understanding that God walks through the valley with you, not just waiting at the other side for you to emerge, miraculously restored. He is present in the ache of the knees, in the blur of the eyes, in the quiet of the empty house, in the long hours of the night. He is present in the vulnerability, in the dependence, in the very act of needing. So how can this ancient prayer, this raw expression of human vulnerability and divine steadfastness, enter your daily life, not as a distant concept, but as a living, breathing companion? When that familiar wave of anxiety washes over you, the fear of being a burden, the sting of being ignored, the quiet dread of another day feeling invisible, of another day passing without meaningful connection, you might find yourself returning to a specific verse, a specific phrase that resonates with your soul. Perhaps it's the simple grounding phrase, "Be my rock of refuge." You don't need to understand it perfectly or feel a sudden rush of comfort, a miraculous lifting of all burdens. Just let the words sit with you. Repeat them quietly to yourself, like a mantra, when the weight becomes too much, when the world feels overwhelming. My rock of refuge. It's an invitation to lean into something larger than yourself. Something that doesn't change with the seasons of your life or the shifting attention of the world. It's an act of placing your trust, however small, in an unchanging foundation. Or maybe before sleep, when the day's quiet moments amplify the feeling of loneliness, when the shadows lengthen and the mind begins to wander into places of regret or fear, you might sit with the line, "Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone." It's not about demanding an answer or forcing a feeling of peace. but about bringing your honest fear, your deepest vulnerability, into the presence of God. It's a way of saying, "Here I am, with all my fears and frailties, with all my doubts and my weariness, and I trust that you see me, even when no one else does, even when I struggle to see myself." It's a quiet act of faith, a small anchor in the vastness of the night, a whisper of hope in the face of despair. It's a recognition that even in your weakness, you are still worthy of divine attention, still held in divine love. Look again at the candle. It burns steadily, a small flame against the darkness. It doesn't promise to banish all shadows, to make the night disappear, but it is a constant, gentle reminder that light is present. It's a visual anchor, a quiet whisper that even when everything else feels dark, when the world seems to have forgotten you, there is a source of warmth, a steady presence that does not waver. It's a tangible symbol of the God who is your rock, your fortress, the one who does not cast you away. This reorientation isn't about denying the pain or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about finding a way to live with the pain, to carry it differently, to understand that even in your most vulnerable state, you are not abandoned. It's about shifting your gaze from what you've lost to what remains, from what the world demands to what God freely gives. It's a journey of quiet resilience, of finding strength not in what you can do, but in who you are in the eyes of your Creator. That quiet pause, that moment with the candle, is a reminder that sometimes the most profound truths are found not in grand pronouncements but in stillness, in the space between words. We've been sitting with the psalmist's honest cry, the fear of being cast away, of becoming invisible. And it's important to acknowledge that this isn't a simple fear that can be wished away with a positive thought or a quick prayer. It's a deep existential ache that touches the very core of our being. There's something I keep coming back to when I think about this kind of pain, this feeling of being forgotten, especially as we age, as our roles change, as the world around us accelerates. It's the descent into the real difficulty of it. I don't know if this will make sense, but sometimes, when you're in this place, prayer can feel like talking to the ceiling. You whisper your fears, your loneliness, your questions into the quiet, into the vastness, and sometimes the quiet just whispers back, an echo of your own voice, or worse, nothing at all. It's not that you stop believing, not that your faith completely vanishes, but the feeling of belief, that vibrant connection, that sense of God's tangible presence can seem to vanish. The fear doesn't just go away because you have faith. In fact, sometimes it feels like faith makes it harder, because you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to trust, you're supposed to have all the answers, and yet the ache is still there, sharp and persistent, a constant companion. God can seem absent for so long, His silence so profound that you begin to wonder if He was ever really there, or if He just moved on to tend to the younger, the more vibrant, the more visible parts of His creation, leaving you behind in the shadows. This isn't doubt as a theological position. It's the honest, raw, gut-wrenching experience of a human heart grappling with a silence that feels deafening, a void that feels immense. It's the feeling of being in a spiritual desert, where the well of comfort seems to have run dry. And here's the honest tension, the paradox we must hold. I don't have all the answers. No one does. Pain doesn't disappear because faith exists. The valley is real, and sometimes it is very, very long, stretching out before you with no clear end in sight. Your struggle with feeling invisible, with the fear of abandonment, with the profound loneliness that can accompany aging, is not a sign of weak faith. It is, in fact, a sign of profound humanity, of having a heart that longs for connection, for purpose, for being seen and cherished. It's a sign that you are still alive, still feeling, still wrestling with the deepest questions of existence, still seeking meaning in a world that often seems to offer little. To pretend otherwise, to offer platitudes or easy answers, would be to diminish the very real weight you carry, to invalidate the depth of your experience. It would be to offer a stone when you are asking for bread. So, if we can't resolve the tension, if we can't promise that things will suddenly get better, or that God will miraculously change your circumstances overnight, what can we do? We can reorient. We can find a way of being inside this difficult situation that does not require the situation to change first. It's about finding a way to remain standing, to remain present, even when the ground feels shaky beneath your feet, even when the world seems to be crumbling around you. It's about understanding that your worth isn't tied to your productivity, your visibility, your social calendar, or even your physical strength. It's inherent, an unchangeable truth, given by the one who created you, woven into the very fabric of your being. This worth is not earned. It simply is. Remember Margaret, sitting at her kitchen table, the cold tea, the echoing silence. Her situation hasn't changed. The phone still isn't ringing. The world outside is still bustling, still indifferent. But perhaps in the quiet space of acknowledging her fear, of naming her invisibility, of bringing her honest lament to the divine, she begins to find a different way to hold it. Not a way to make it disappear, but a way to stand within it, to find a quiet strength that doesn't depend on external validation. The central image from the psalm, "Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone," takes on a new profound layer of meaning here. It's not just a plea for God to not abandon you. It's also an invitation to recognize that you are not abandoning Him in your honest struggle, in your raw questioning, in your moments of doubt. It's a profound act of faith to bring your deepest fears of abandonment to the one you fear might abandon you. It's in that very act of honest lament, of crying out, of laying bare your soul, that the connection is forged anew, or perhaps simply revealed to have been there all along, hidden beneath the layers of expectation and disappointment. It's a recognition that God's presence isn't just for the strong and the vibrant, for the successful and the celebrated, but especially for the weak, the forgotten, the invisible, the broken-hearted. He is present in the very act of your crying out, in the very ache of your heart, in the tears that fall silently. He is present in the vulnerability, in the surrender, in the quiet acceptance of what is. The candle still burns, a quiet, persistent light. It's inside the tunnel with you, not just waiting at the end. It's a testament to a presence that endures, that holds, that sees, even when you feel utterly alone, utterly lost in the vastness. This is not about finding easy answers, but about finding a way to be held in the midst of the questions, to find solace in the very act of seeking. Carrying that quiet understanding from the last block, that sense of reorientation rather than resolution, that deep acknowledgement of the honest tension of faith in difficult times, we come to a place where we can prepare our hearts for prayer. We've named the pain. We've sat with the psalm. We've wrestled with the silence. And we've recognized that sometimes the most profound act of faith is simply to show up, exactly as we are. Now, I want to invite you to participate in a prayer. This isn't about performing or finding the right words or even feeling a particular way. It's not about achieving a state of perfect peace or sudden enlightenment. It's simply about showing up just as you are, with everything you've brought to this moment. Your weariness, your doubts, your hopes, your fears, your longing to be seen. If it feels right for you, you might place a hand over your heart, a simple, tender gesture of compassion towards yourself, acknowledging the journey you've been on. the burdens you carry, or perhaps you might close your eyes, allowing yourself to simply listen and be present, to retreat inward from the distractions of the external world. You could also rest your gaze on the candle, letting its steady, gentle flame be an anchor for your thoughts, a quiet focal point in the midst of any internal turbulence. And before we begin, take one slow, deep breath. Let it fill you completely, from the tips of your toes to the crown of your head, and then release it gently, slowly, letting go of any tension, any expectation, any need to be anything other than exactly who you are right now. It's not a coincidence that you ended up watching this video today, at this particular moment in your life. Perhaps in some quiet, mysterious way, God has drawn you here, not to fix you, not to magically erase your pain, but to meet you exactly where you are, in the midst of your struggle, in the heart of your invisibility. He can work with everything you've brought to this moment, the doubt that gnaws at the edges of your faith, the exhaustion that weighs down your spirit, the half-belief that flickers like a dying ember, the anger that simmers beneath the surface, the profound fear of being forgotten, of being cast aside. You don't need to clean yourself up or put on a brave face or pretend to be stronger than you are. You don't need to have all the answers or even feel particularly spiritual. Just bring your honest self, your authentic self, with all its imperfections and vulnerabilities. There's a quiet intimacy in this space we've created together, a grounded hope that doesn't demand anything from you, but simply offers presence, offers companionship. No urgency, no excitement, no pressure to perform, just a gentle invitation to be held, to be seen, to be acknowledged in your deepest being. This is a space where your quiet suffering is honored, where your silent tears are witnessed, where your unspoken prayers are heard. If you're ready, if your heart feels even a small flicker of willingness, let's pray together now. My God, we come before you with hearts that know the ache of feeling unseen, unheard, and profoundly forgotten. We name the deep, often unspoken pain of invisibility in our later years, the sting of being marginalized by a world that frequently values youth, speed, and visible strength above all else. We confess the fear that whispers in the quiet moments, telling us we are no longer useful, no longer relevant, no longer worthy of attention or affection. We feel the profound loneliness of empty rooms, the deafening silence of unanswered calls, the subtle dismissals, the polite but uninterested smiles that make us question our very place in this world, our very right to exist meaningfully within it. We bring you the chilling fear of abandonment, the terror that as our physical strength wanes, as our minds perhaps become less sharp, so too will the love and care of those around us, and even God, your own steadfast presence. We lay before you the heavy burden of feeling like a story that's been told too many times, a life that's been lived and is now simply waiting to end, a book closed and put back on the shelf. We don't soften this pain, Lord. We offer it to you in its raw, unvarnished truth, with all its sharp edges and bitter taste. We offer you our honest lament, our cries from the depths. And yet in this very moment, in the midst of this raw honesty, we declare that you are here, not as a distant judge, not as a demanding taskmaster, not as a God who requires us to be strong before he will engage, but as a quiet, steady, unwavering presence. You are here in the gentle flicker of this candle, in the subtle warmth it casts, in the gentle rhythm of our breath, in the unspoken longings of our hearts, in the very act of our reaching out. You are the God who sees the unseen, who hears the unheard, who remembers the forgotten, who cherishes the marginalized. You are present in the ache, in the doubt, in the anger, in the very act of our crying out to you, even when our words are few and faltering. Your presence is not contingent on our strength or our visibility, our productivity or our performance. It is simply true, a foundational reality, a bedrock beneath our feet, even when nothing confirms it to our senses, even when our feelings tell us otherwise. You are the God who dwells with the brokenhearted. So we ask, Lord, for specific tangible things. We ask for the grace to get through the next morning, to find a small spark of purpose in the mundane tasks of the day, to discover a flicker of joy in a simple moment. We ask for a moment of stillness in the middle of the night, a quiet assurance that we are not alone in the darkness, that your light penetrates even the deepest shadows. We ask for the capacity to trust when trust feels unreasonable, when every outward sign suggests otherwise, when our own experience screams of abandonment. Grant us the strength to take one more step, even when we don't know where the path leads, even when our legs are weary, trusting that you are the rock beneath our feet, the firm ground that will not give way. Help us to see our own inherent worth, a worth that does not diminish with age or ability, with social status or physical decline, but is rooted in your eternal, unconditional love, a love that saw us before we were formed and will hold us beyond our last breath. And Lord, we echo the ancient desperate prayer. Do not cast me away when I am old. Do not forsake me when my strength is gone. Hold us close, Lord, when we feel most vulnerable, most afraid, most forgotten. Wrap us in your presence, not to erase the pain, but to sustain us through it. And now, we surrender. We lay down the heavy burden of trying to be seen, of trying to prove our worth, of trying to fight this battle alone, of trying to make sense of the senseless. We surrender not because the weight is gone, not because the pain has vanished, but because carrying it alone is no longer required, no longer sustainable. We lay it at your feet, trusting that you are our rock of refuge, our fortress, our unwavering presence in every season of life, in every moment of our fading strength. We trust that you see us, you know us, and you hold us, always. Amen. God heard that prayer. He hears every quiet whisper, every unspoken fear, every honest cry of your heart. When the weight comes back, and it will, because life is often hard, you can return to this video, to these words, to this quiet space. Let it be a reminder that you are not alone, and that your worth is not defined by the world's gaze, by its fleeting attention, or by your diminishing capacities. Your worth is inherent, eternal, and divinely affirmed. And perhaps, in your own way, in your own quiet strength, you can be for someone else the same kind of light this video was for you. A quiet presence, a listening ear, a gentle reminder that they are seen, even when they feel invisible. If this content has resonated with you, if it has offered even a moment of solace or connection, consider subscribing to this channel to stay connected to messages of comfort and hope. And if there's one specific person in your life whose name you already know, someone who is walking through their own valley right now, someone who might be feeling invisible, please share this video with them. Finally, if you feel moved to do so, leave a comment below. Share if you'd like what valley you're walking through, or which psalm you'd want to hear next. Your voice matters here. Your story matters.